Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Hello again, and welcome to episode 94 of Imagine Theatre's podcast series, and a Merry Christmas as we edge closer to the festive season. This time, I'm hoping to be chased by a vixen.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
In the last episode, we looked behind the scenes in the Big Top in Kilmarnock for Imagine's production of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. If you missed that one, you can still check it out along with all of the other previous episodes. Just go to where you normally get your podcasts from. Now, if you're new to the series, we've spoken to all sorts of guests, from celebrities and backstage team members, panto legends, historians and academics. We've had a series of episodes looking at specific panto titles, and we've also talked about how pantomime is produced, while also discussing its history and its future. So remember, you can check them all out where you normally get your podcasts from, and don't forget to subscribe to the series so that you don't miss any future episodes. So, I'm really excited this time because we're cutting to the chase and chatting to a vixen, the quiz show chaser and TV personality Jenny Ryan, who is starring in Beauty and the Beast for Imagine at the Lyceum in Crewe this Christmas. How are you, Jenny?
I'm great, Martin. How's it going over there?
It's all going really well. It's a really hectic time of the year. We'll talk about panto in a moment's time, but tell us a bit about you and growing up in Bolton as a child. What sort of child were you, and were you interested in theatre at all?
I was one of those curious to the point of being annoying children. Yes, my granddad taught me to read and write quite early, thinking that he would probably save himself a bit of stress answering all those questions. He could just leave me with a book in the corner, but absolutely not. No, he had to answer so many questions that came up in everything I read, fiction and non-fiction. So by the time I got to school, I was quite a dorky little child who really wanted to learn. But my relationship with theatre is quite an interesting one. There aren't many people who had the sort of quite intimate relationship with theatre that I had as a child, because growing up in quite a grotty working class neighbourhood, it wasn't really a thing that people around our way would spend a lot of disposable income on. However, my grandparents had some spare rooms which they let out as digs to actors for the local theatre, for the Octagon in Bolton. So I was going to see theatre from a very tender age, like all kinds of drama, everything going on. So I think my first production I remember seeing was in 1988. I went to see The Comedy of Errors. So yes, I've always been very interested in theatre. It's always been sort of there as a part of the background of my life. For about 2 decades, there wasn't really a production at the Octagon that I didn't get to see, with school trips and free tickets from the actors and just a general curiosity. So yeah, it spurred me on to go and study theatre studies to A level and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I've had quite a relationship with theatre without actually being a trained actor or working in the theatre.
Well, I'm Shakespeare's not a bad place to start, but I wonder if you remember going to see panto as a child.
Not so much panto. At the first panto I think I saw was when my dad remarried. Well, remarried. He married my stepmom, and her mum was a big fan of panto, and it was part of their family routine to go every year to one of the big pantos in Manchester. So in 1990, we went and saw Dick Whittington in Manchester, and I got to see Les Dawson. It was incredible. And that was a completely different theatrical experience for me. I was used to a fairly small theatre in the round, rep theatre, to go to this big, shiny, gilded auditorium where you were allowed to make noise during the show. A whole different experience for me when I was 10 years old there.
So what struck you about panto? I mean, it could be any number of things. It's so different to many other forms of theatre, isn't it? It could be the colour, the spectacle. It could be the fact that you can get involved. What sort of stuck out in your mind as a 10-year-old?
I remember thinking there's sort of a language here that I'm not fully conversant with yet, but it feels like something I can catch up with, because so many of the people around me knew what to do at certain points in the show. The dame walks out and you get cheers and wolf whistles just for the costume. Like, I've never seen that before, but okay, I can get on board with this. And the booing for the villain and the song sheet and all these things that I had no idea could be a part of theatre. So it was quite a learning experience for me. I'd come from a completely different side of things and expected to almost misbehave in the theatre. I thought it was wonderful, and I was really pleased that my step siblings were really into it as well because they had no interest in theatre otherwise. But this, they were ahead of me. They knew what to do at every twist and turn in the show.
Well, you said you went on to study theatre studies, but you went to university eventually in Leeds. And I wonder if you ever had a sort of choice in your mind of going on to do English and drama or theatre or anything, because you read law in the end, didn't you?
Yeah, and in a way, I do regret making that choice, but I made a choice really early on. I was probably 7 or 8 when I decided I wanted to be a barrister when I grew up. And I really stuck by my guns, even if in the back of my mind I was thinking, well, English literature and theatre are things that I'm both enjoy and I'm really good at. But I stuck to my guns and I went to study law, and it meant that I was in the theatre group at university, and I once made a passing remark to my mum that I really enjoyed performing and maybe I'd consider going to drama school. And she thought I was making a joke, unfortunately, so she laughed.
But in a bizarre way, it opened up the career you have now because your first television appearance was, for Leeds at University Challenge, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's, it is performing in a different way, being able to rise to the challenge of being on TV and holding your nerve in front of a lot of observers, more observers than can fit in a theatre. Millions of people watching at home, knowing that they're watching you and judging you, and you've got to give the best performance. I think that switched on something in my brain, and sharing my is it a talent? Is it a skill? It's a bit of both for quiz on TV. Just it felt quite natural. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Everything did in a twisty turny path lead me to where I am today and back onto the stage, in fact.
Yeah, I think the thing that struck me, I've seen some clips of that University Challenge appearance, and you just look so comfortable. And I think the very first question you answer is a question that another team got wrong about golf. And I think your own admission at the time was you took a bit of a punt on that one.
Yeah. It happened on instinct, really. It was almost like I was doing improv. Suddenly, okay, I'm gonna take a chance because the worst thing that you build up in your mind as a quizzer, as a contestant, is that you're going to get something really wrong and people are going to laugh at you. They're going to judge you. They're going to think you're stupid just for one wrong answer. And so taking that risk and putting your head over the parapet and actually pressing that buzzer is a huge thing. So I was so proud of myself for going on my instinct and thinking, I don't know much about golf. I didn't at that point, but I did know about a young golfer who was coming through at quite a tender age called Justin Rose. So I pressed the button and answered that. And lo and behold, it was him.
And that seemed to fill you with more confidence then, because you just went on to blow the others away. Obviously, the university did particularly well in that year, and that opened up the doors in many ways. Did that whet your appetite to do other things as you later went on Mastermind? And obviously, we know you now as a chaser, but was that the sort of experience that whet your appetite to do more?
It certainly was. The fact that I could go and do that and feel enjoyment out of an experience that a lot of people felt nothing but nerves. I came away with such a favourable experience and memory of being in that studio for the first time. It gives you the bug. If you A lot of my friends from the quiz circuit will attest that once you've gone on to one show, you could think, oh, I want to do that all over again. Oh, I really enjoy. I'll do better next time. And you apply for lots of other shows, and it's sort of a snowball effect. You can't stop yourself if you're that kind of combination of nerd and show off, which is what I am.
I guess as well that for any budding contestants from any of these game shows, your experience with Justin Rose is a great example that you should basically go with your instinct. Don't second guess it because that's when you actually make mistakes or, miss an opportunity. Just go with what you think.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing in quiz circles is don't talk yourself out of that first instinctive answer. If something immediately comes to mind, to me anyway, it's come to the front of my mind for a reason. So the worst thing you can do is you come up with that instinctive answer, and then you go, oh, actually, it could be, because you apply logic, and it always turns out to be the first answer. So, yeah, it's trust yourself. You should trust yourself more.
You've obviously, over a period of time, built up a reputation from things like Mastermind, and of course, you went on 15 to 1, The Weakest Link, and you've written questions for others as well. For a while, I think you were a QI elf, but I think you have, correct me if I'm wrong, Anne Hegarty to thank for your role on The Chase, don't you?
It was certainly Anne who put my name forward in the first instance when the producers started to cast around looking for people to audition to become a chase, and they were minded to look for someone who was possibly a few years younger than the others, and to hopefully find a female quizzer to join the chasers. So I was on the same quiz team as her at the time, and she took me to one side. She was a little bit grumpy about it. She said, producers are looking to add a woman to the chasers. Well, I don't like it, because I like being the queen bee. However, if it is anybody, I'd like it to be you. That sounds really kind of sharp and cruel, but actually that is one of the most affectionate things she's ever said to me.
Yeah, I was going to say,
That's just her style. She was very direct, and very factual about it,
yeah.
but also very sweet, that she genuinely was rooting for me all the way.
Yeah, I was going to say she was totally in character, because that's what you'd expect, of course, isn't it? But I don't know how many people know this, but do you want to just tell us the story of how you got the name the Vixen?
Yes. Well, we all have our chaser nicknames. I wasn't lucky enough to be like Mark, because Mark already had it's his family nickname. That they're all the Labettes are called the Beast, because it's the French translation,
Hmm.
Labette the Beast. So I didn't have that opportunity. Producers had decided they wanted me to have an animal nickname, because I wear a lot of animal print, particularly leopard print. And every time they'd see me, I was wearing something else leopard print. So they thought originally they wanted to call me the Cougar, which is wrong on several levels, including the fact that I'm a little bit too young to be a cougar. Well, I was then, maybe not so much now. And it was actually Bradley Walsh who, after having a screen test with me, and I'd had my hair in this big red ponytail, he said that reminded me of a fox's brush. So I was thinking foxes they're very cunning, they're clever, they're fast, they're fierce. So what about the vixen? And the producers went, well, that's absolutely genius. Thanks, Brad. So Brad to the rescue came up with a very glamorous and appropriate nickname for me.
Very apt as well. It really is. We'll return to the chase and talk about Bradley in a moment's time. But first, as we're approaching Christmas, let's just get a word from Imagine Theatre's joint CEO, Steve Bowden.
We'd like to wish all of our listeners to the podcast a very Merry Christmas this year. We'd also like to send our very best wishes to our casts, backstage teams, and all of the team at Imagine headquarters, as well as at Trafalgar Entertainment, along with the hard-working venue staff, and of course our fabulous audiences on our pantomimes across England, Scotland, and Wales. Here's to a joyous festive panto season, and we wish you a happy and prosperous new year.
Thanks, Steve. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and everybody back at Imagine headquarters as well. Now, Jenny, a moment ago, we were talking about how you got your pseudonym for the chase, the Vixen, from Bradley Walsh. Now, a lot of people who watch TV generally will look at celebrities and say to themselves, I wonder what they're like in real life. Well, I've heard from so many people what a lovely man Bradley Walsh is. And my son was on the chase quite recently, actually, although you weren't the chaser. And one of the things he came back saying was that the experience was great, but how lovely Bradley Walsh is. And there's absolutely no doubt, is there, that one of the key factors to the success of the programme is Bradley.
Yes, he is the absolute key to what's a great format. And I think the chasers, we've all got great individual assets to add to the mix. The casting is brilliant because they always have great contestants. The questions are brilliant, but it just would not be the same show. It would not have run for so long without Brad. He is such an amazing professional. having worked, every kind of venue under the sun
Hmm.
over his long career and worked his way to having hosting his own shows now. He's got a really broad skill set and he uses all those skills all at once. It's an absolute privilege to watch him and be observing him up close on a daily basis because he's got the talent to keep everything moving in a very professional way for the sake of the crew. Because everyone's we've got to get through 3 shows in a day. We've got to
Yep.
keep things running smoothly. Time is money in that sort of situation. But at the same time, he's very aware that there are 4 people in that room who this is one of the most intense experiences of their lives, and they've all come in and the shoulders are so tense and tight, they're almost up around their ears. And he's got this real skill that he will speak to each contestant, even just 2 minutes, and find something in common and make some jokes with them and find that common ground. And then their shoulders are back to normal by the end of this 2 or 3 minute general chat, where it might be just that he's found out where you're from and I've driven down the A whatever, or is your local pub the Two Bells, and you're immediately at ease with him. He's got this incredible warm skill of being able to identify what a contestant needs to bring them back down onto a level to be able to take part in the rest of the quiz. It is magic to watch it happen and to see him peel someone off the ceiling almost and bring them back down to get on with the rest of the quiz. Yeah, he's remarkable and it would not be the same show without our Brad. He's brilliant.
Yeah. And never ever underestimate just how much the pressure might hit you when you're on the program. No matter how easy it seems at home, it's a totally different ball game, isn't it, when you're in the studio?
It really is. It's huge. A lot of people who watch at home and shout do not realize just what a difference it makes. And so I toured my little cabaret show this year, just a few dates around the country. And so we tried to recreate a little bit of that pressure. So we had a little quiz on stage. You think it's easy at home sitting in your armchair, right? You're up on stage, hundreds of people are staring at you. We've got bright lights, we've got tense music. Everyone's going to notice if you get something wrong. Okay, times this by 10,000, and that is the pressure that contestants are under on the show. So I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for contestants, especially when I can see the head goes a little bit. It's very, very, very intense. A lot of pressure, and people should have a little bit more care when they watch someone making a mess of it. You go, oh, I'm sad for you. Right, on another day, you wouldn't make all those mistakes.
Time travels quickly. I think next year is your 10th year on the show, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
thanks. You made me feel old. Cheers.
So
Cheers.
I'm
It has
also
absolutely flown by.
I'm also reminded, and I thought it was absolutely fabulous at the time, in probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, when some of you appeared on Comic Relief doing the Wizard of Oz medley. That looked great fun.
That was a lot. That was very intense. In the same way that it's tough for contestants to come on a quiz show and be out of their depth. We were out of our depth. That's not our remit, is to dress up in silly costumes and do choreography and sing on live TV. So that was quite a big thing. And also maybe I'm a bit more comfortable with that sort of thing than my colleagues who appeared with me because there was a little bit of man management involved. Anne had a wonderful time, but Anne's been doing panto for quite a while as well. She loves the dressing up and hitting the boards. So yeah, the boys Mark and Sean required a little bit of coaxing out onto stage. But it was pretty spectacular to be part of a big Saturday night show like that. And I finally got to fulfill that dream that I missed out on when I was, I think, 9 or 10 at school. They did The Wizard of Oz and I didn't even get a part. I was in the chorus. So I was so heartbroken. I really wanted to be Dorothy, and my granddad said we could put on a show at home and I could be Dorothy, and I was like, well, that's not the same, is it? But thank you, granddad. Anyway, finally, decades later, I got to be Dorothy.
You were very diplomatic with the boys there, because you certainly looked more comfortable than the others. But it was amazing. Obviously, it was a worthy cause as well. Was that I suppose your first foot in the panto camp, because this year isn't your first, you've done a few of them, but did the panto come out of doing Wizard of Oz? Did somebody spot you and think, oh, you'd be great?
Not sure how I got spotted for panto in the first place, actually. It may have been that um, I believe the first panto I did, which was in Windsor, I think my colleague Anne had done the year before. So they kind of moved down
Right.
the list and found me. But yeah, that, I mean, that was a very good show reel if people were trying to cast me. Uh, I wouldn't mind that being the first thing that people see if they think, well, should she be on stage in our musical extravaganza? Absolutely, let's pop her on.
And that was with, I think at that time it would have been with a friend of mine from many years ago, Michael Windsor.
Michael Windsor, yes. Yeah, Basil Brush's personal assistant.
Absolutely. So, what was it like? And what is the experience like? What do you love about doing panto?
It's so special to be part of people's Christmas tradition, to be part of something so silly and unique and also serious and fun that goes back hundreds of years. You feel the weight of history a little bit. You also feel the weight of expectation that, you know, people have spent their good money to have this as a big Christmas treat. It's going to be some people's first experience of any kind of theatre, which is another big, it's another hand on your shoulder reminding you this is really special. And to feel all that and feel that energy in the auditorium, you can even, when you're putting your costume on and you've got the feed on in your dressing room and you hear that the chunner and it gets slightly louder and louder as we get closer to curtain up. It is really, really magical. And for me, it's particularly the youngsters who don't necessarily like I had the privilege as a kid of going to theatre quite regularly. This might be their one trip per year. It might be their one trip per childhood. And that experience can be life changing. It can open your eyes to a lot. And we're creating a fairy story and putting it out there just specially for, I think it's like you say, it's for the children, for the children out there and for the young at heart. There's nothing quite like that. Having a story performed for you, it must take you back to being really little and your mum or your dad reading to you in bed. That story's being created just for you individually, directly. It's not the same as putting a DVD of Frozen on. It's a whole different experience for these children, and so many of them will then be inspired. I want to do this. It could be I want to be up on stage performing. It could be I want to make those costumes. It could be I want to write songs like that. There's so many ways people can be inspired by just one trip to the theatre as a child.
Yeah.
It is a magical overall experience, and I think that's what makes it particularly special to me, that every single person out there, well, most people, some people have been dragged along, but you want everyone to have a moment of joy, hopefully 2 hours of joy, just solidly, and for it to be something that they think about for years to come.
Yeah, and for somebody who'd done an awful lot of television, very often, if not always, without a studio audience, what was it like the first time you stepped out onto a stage and heard that wall of sound?
It is very different because we'll be recording a show and it goes in the can and who knows when it goes out. So it's done and dusted. It's your day at work. You don't get to experience the direct effect. And even when you do live TV, like the comic relief Wizard of Oz, by the time you get home, well, it's not on TV, so it may as well have never happened in your mind. You don't get the direct audience response, but to actually step out into a room and to almost feel the breath of people shouting at you, particularly when you're playing the villain, I will say the first time I stepped out and people booed, it almost knocked me off my feet, and I took it quite personally. I got a little bit in my head and a little bit upset about it, and then after a few times you realize, no, it means you're doing your job properly. Okay, it's not about you. It's the outfit that you're wearing and what you are representing. Okay. And then a week later, you are absolutely relishing every boo. I am truly a villain now.
Yeah, I mean, it would have upset you taking it personally early days, but Anne Hegarty would regard it as a badge of honor, I think, wouldn't she? This year, you're the Enchantress at the Crewe Lyceum, working with another mate of mine from, in fact, we did this same show together back in 2009. Steve Johnston, you got a great cast, and this is one you've not done before, isn't it?
Yes, this is brand new to me, and yeah, it's going to be very exciting to meet a whole new crew of people and go through a whole new story and see what we can put together. I know there's some really experienced people in the cast and in the crew who can help me through. I still see myself as very much a newbie at the panto game, so I think this is my fourth panto, maybe.
Mhm.
Uh, so I'm still a baby, but I'm looking forward to creating this story from scratch and giving it a different twist to maybe the cartoon version that people are used to.
Now, of all the ones that you've done or seen, do you have a favorite panto?
I think my favorite will always have to be Sleeping Beauty because it was not only the first panto I did, it was the second panto I did. And in both our productions, which were quite different, with different production companies, a whole different team of people, I've made friends for life, almost trauma bonding, really, sometimes when you have very intense experiences. And, like Mike Windsor, it will always be a pal of mine. And Martin Cabell-Reid and from Windsor, and I've got my pals Nathan Smith and Hannah Hobley in particular from the second Sleeping Beauty I did. They will always be my friends because of very intense panto experience. 2 or 3 shows a day. You
Yeah.
are going to be pals with people forever, and I will remember the most traumatic things, the most funny things from those. There was an incident where everyone almost had to swap roles in Sleeping Beauty at Windsor because some illness went round and
Yeah.
everybody kept getting moved up the cast list, which was, improvisational skills were very much needed. And the second Sleeping Beauty I did in Rochdale when an entire class of children ran down to the stage when Sleeping Beauty fell to the floor, telling us how to do CPR because they'd done it in school recently.
Well, that's the joy of
They were
panto,
very
isn't it?
serious and earnest about it as well. That was absolutely delightful. So yeah, I think Sleeping Beauty, such a simple story, so it means you can do an awful lot around it. It's you can put your own twist on it, and yeah, she's a great villain. Is Caraboss. You always get to wear horns.
Now, look, because we're so close to Christmas, I thought for a bit of fun, I should throw maybe 4 or 5 quiz questions at you just to see if you're on your toes. I think they're all areas that you'll know an awful lot about. We talked about Mastermind, for instance. The first question I want to ask you is, who played Willow in Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Oh, well, that's a blast from the past. Yes, I did Buffy the Vampire Slayer as my specialist subject on Mastermind. So I thankfully still remember that Alison Hannigan played Willow.
Yeah, absolutely right. You went on University Challenge, didn't you? But I wonder if you know who the original presenter was.
The original presenter of University Challenge has a slightly different television anecdote that a little fact that I add on. So the original host was Bamba Gascoigne, and it was actually his house that was used as the house in the sitcom Ghosts.
You see, this is why you're a fantastic quizzer. Okay. The next question, which game show was devised by a former BT sales manager called John M. Lewis?
Oh, BT sales manager called John M. Lewis. Wow.
Been on this one.
Oh no, fine. Got just casting my mind through my little Rolodex of quiz shows. Let's go for 15-1.
Absolutely right. And the final one, just for fun, do you happen to know how old Bradley Walsh is?
Oh, he's young at heart, is what he is. Oh my goodness, is he? I think he's roughly the same age as my mum. Is he a little bit younger? I will go for 65.
You are so close. He's actually 64.
Yes, yeah. So, maybe he's not had his birthday yet. Okay. Maybe I've missed it. I've not missed his birthday. That's good.
So, well, listen, I know you're going to have a fabulous Christmas, and you'll spend your Christmas in Crewe, I think, will you? Or will you be going back home at all?
I might stick around in Crewe. I am really excited to be experience the whole Christmas vibe of a new town. It feels like a shame to leave. I've switched on the lights. I may as well hang around and see them twinkle.
And while you're there, of course, the rest of the company, many of them will be there as well. And you do become a bit of a family. So it's still a family Christmas, even though you're not at home, isn't it?
It's such an intense bonding experience that, yeah, you do end up missing everybody on Christmas Day, even though it's your one day off, and you should want to get away from them and get a bit of a break. But you end up texting your castmates, don't you?
And
Are you watching Doctor Who?
And I hope as well, maybe for some Christmas carols, you'll be taking your ukulele with you.
Oh, I might just do that, although I wouldn't want to subject many people to that racket. I'm not very good. I just enjoy playing.
Well, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Have a great Christmas. Have a great run as well. Beauty and the Beast runs at the Crewe Lyceum right the way through until the 5th of January. And Jenny, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, Martin. Merry Christmas to you.
And that's it for now, and for another year. So on behalf of everybody at Imagine Theatre, thank you for your support with this podcast series, and have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope you can join me next time in 2025 when we're behind the scenes at another production of Beauty and the Beast, this time at the Pavilion Theatre in Glasgow. So join me then for episode 95.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.